Intro again. Damn it. Hey, there we go. I forgot to add my intro again. I'll do that later. Hopefully Friday I'll have a fancy new setup that Enraged Goose Studios has made for me for Streamlabs. I am going to, if you're on at like midnight or 1 a.m. tonight, you might see me messing around with it. So stop by and make fun of me. Oh yeah, welcome to Houston No Problem. Yes, I'm aware I got some sun yesterday. You don't need to point it out. So, today is, we got some news coming out. I posted it to Twitter last night, but did a control survey comparing his GME survey and discovered that there's probably billions of shares of GME out there. At least 400 million GME shares. So we've got that going here. Oh, my robot voice. I forgot to put my mic up here. Oops. Am I echoing? Damn it. Okay. And I always forget. It's just like little things I'll forget. I'm just a champion at this. I need like a type A personality to force me to do things. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. I've been whispering off in the distance here. Okay. So yes, did a control survey with Apple stock and discovered that there's a massive undercount in his original survey. And so his estimations are that there's like 400 million plus shares owned just by American retail investors. And that puts the share count probably closer to the billion or billions total of naked shares out there for GME. And then where's my Patrick Koch? I put a link in the description of the video as well. He did some looking at the trademarks search for the U.S. Patent Office and found that Gamestop is diversifying like crazy, that they are creating licensed probably toys and games and plush toys and other things, as well as possibly creating a GameStop experience store, which will be serving food and drinks and have console games and all sorts of crazy stuff, and going hard into the the equipment market. So they've got different brands of microphones and video cameras and streaming setups and gaming setups that people can start buying at their stores. So they're not just doing the like e-retailer thing. They are expanding outwards like crazy. So they're definitely like bulking up for the future. What was the other thing? Oh yeah, the eviction moratorium more or less got extended for another 60 days. It only covers about 90% of the country and doesn't help anybody who already got evicted in like those 2 days where there's the window. So that should at least put a pause on some of the damage that'll happen to the market if 8 to 40 million people lose their homes. We still have no news on the debt ceiling, although the bank stocks, I believe, they were down today finally. Let me just look at my thing here. It tells me they were down earlier. Yeah, bank stocks finally went down, but not by much today. So, that's where they should be going. All right. Adrian, he writes, Houston, did you see the AMC share count website? People are trying to do the math and figure out the actual retail shares. Yes. So Adam Aaron posted a link to a website that allows you to connect your brokerage to it in order to ask questions for the shareholder earnings call. And I don't know the exact, last time I looked, it was like 20,000 people had signed up, and the average share count was over 1,000 shares per person, and that the estimations are like billions and billions and billions of naked shares must be in existence. So that's wild. That's crazy. So if you go to Adam Aaron's Twitter, you can see the link for that thing on there. I haven't done it because, I'll be honest, like giving somebody all my brokerage information wigs me out. So I didn't do it. But the people who have, well, you have a pretty large survey there of 20,000 plus people who have done it and listed their holdings. So yeah, that's out there. And I think these squeezed companies are figuring out ways they can get proper share counts, or at least estimations, out there. And then they can say confidently, hey, we've been shorted too much and there's too many naked shares. Okay. Let's see here. What do we got? What do we got here? Sorry, trying to click on multiple things here. Robinhood is up 85%. Holy smokes. I didn't even look at what their share price was doing. What is their share price doing? 67. Holy crap. Dude. Maybe they're getting pumped up so they can get dumped like crazy. I don't know. Man, up 85. That just, considering how many people are just leaving that platform. Eric, super chats. Houston, I read in a Forbes article that .72 is involved with SAY's vote. It seemed a tad bit sketchy. I agree with you not giving that info out. I can send it on Twitter if interested. Yeah, I right before I came on air, I read a blurb from it's Pixel, I believe, saying, hey, this is .72 that has that website, and you're just giving them all your brokerage information. That's pretty sketchy. And .72 is, they're related to Citadel and Susquehanna and Melvin and all those groups. So, I mean, it's so much incest in that financial world that it's hard to find people who aren't like absolutely just humping each other. But interesting, yeah. It's pretty sketchy. If I were the CEO of a company that had been shorted like crazy, I wouldn't be teaming up with my enemy to get everyone's brokerage information. I would go out of my way to make sure I didn't associate with that. So, interesting. Very interesting. Yeah. Okay. But Eric, thank you for that. Yes, Rocket Ape says, did old Joe issue an executive order to reinstate the eviction moratorium? Yes. Was that unconstitutional? Probably. Will it buy more time? Absolutely. That's true. It'll get people that time because whatever court dealings will happen will get resolved after the moratorium is over. And my guess is that Congress will probably extend the moratorium longer because right now we are in let's see here, every 2 weeks we double about 2.5 times in cases. So we went from nationally, 6 weeks ago, we were at 13,000 cases a day, and now we're at 92,000 cases a day. So the doubling rate is absolutely bonkers for COVID cases. So my guess is by fall, we may see completely different talk coming out of the government in regards to dealing with the COVID situation, because it appears that in Israel, they just released data showing that the Pfizer vaccine, the efficacy is way down with the Delta variant overall. And that efficacy, I mean, they didn't quite term it in the article I read, showing symptoms versus hospitalization. They just said that a lot more people have symptoms than they originally thought they would. So, if those hospitalizations go up with people who are vaccinated, we'll probably get different policy opinions from those in government versus what we're seeing right now. Pastor Blunt around. Do bondholders of Sears have priority when assets are sold off? Any other possible liabilities they have that would leave shareholders with nothing? Usually bondholders get precedent over shareholders, but I think in the stuff I read from Get It Got showed that Sears assets are so big that they can easily cover the bonds. And then shareholders would still get like $17 a share or something, even after that. I'd have to go back and read through that DD and make sure. I might be talking on my ass right here. But yeah, Get It Got while he's also the survey man, he's your Sears man as well. He's got, if you go to his Reddit page, you can find lots and lots of stuff on Sears. The man's a wizard. I highly recommend reading everything he publishes. But that's usually the those you're in debt to get paid off first in bankruptcy, and then whatever's left over will go to the shareholders. I spent a few $100 to buy 1,000 shares of Sears on the off chance that, maybe I'll get something out of it. But they do have a ton of assets still, hard assets. Josh Walker says, "Happy birthday, Houston. Do you think the Fast and Furious series is a great movie series or the greatest movie series?" I haven't seen the newest one. I will say that the only one I truly enjoyed was number 5 in Brazil. The rest of them was like, meh. That's all right. There's a couple funny scenes in there. But, it makes its money. I mean, it's made, like $50 gajillion at this point. So, yeah. Yeah, Pau Tamau, why is the debt ceiling not mentioned throughout the media? I think because they got some sort of memo saying, don't talk about this yet. I'm sure when the banks and the institutions have shored up everything the way they want it, they will then go, hey, NBC News, can you talk about the debt ceiling? And NBC News will go, right away, sir. And we'll bring it up. But right now, I think it would be wise if retail investors also took positions as to, hedge against a debt ceiling not being raised in time. Because the market definitely will be. David Taylor, good afternoon, Houston. If you had $1,000, which would you put it in, AMC or GME, just out of those two? Right now, with the price of GME, I would be dumping it into GME. GME went below 150 today. I would just be throwing money. If I had an extra $1,000 at the moment, yeah, I would be buying GME. Not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. But we know GME can easily hit that 350 range before they short it back down again. And that's an easy way to double your money if you day trade it. But I don't. I just buy it when I can and sit and hold. So I'm waiting for a much bigger payday. Okay. Undying Fear, what's up, Houston? Do you think Metamaterial will make a run before GME and AMC? I think Metamaterial will probably make its run on the T+35 dates. Oh, that's one thing I forgot to post. Enraged Goose Studios sent me an awesome link for... let's open that tab. Click on that. For T+35 dates. I thought it was really great. Of course, now it's not loading. But there it goes. It's loading finally. I hadn't seen this before, so I'm going to post it in the chat here. Got to go there. Got to go there. There's the chat. And... nope, that's not the one. Where's my screen? Sorry. I'm fumbling the ball. There's my chat. Sorry, I have like 9 million windows open. Okay, so I'm posting a link here into the chat. Paste. Send it. It gives you T+35 dates, so you can punch in any stock you find and figure out how many shares failed to deliver and when their T+35 date is. So this is listing. Ooh, I can share screen. One sec. Chrome. Turn it on. It's going to cover my face. Oh, nope. That didn't cover my face. Okay. Do live overlay. Sorry, I haven't developed my hotkeys yet. And I'm still... oops. Nope. Nope. That's not what I wanted. Click on the other one. And... there we go. All right. We did it. Okay. So, this is our... come on. Click on my stupid... All right, whatever. This here is showing a graph of failure to delivers It gives you how many shares were failed to deliver and how much it's worth, at what stock price, and when that T35 date is. So we're looking at T35 starting 19th, 20th, 21st, 22nd, 26th, 27th, 28th. So looks like not next week, perhaps the week after is when we'll see our T35 kick for Metamaterial. It's a groovy little app, stocks era, and you can punch in other ones. So we can do GME and see what happens there. Search it, go do something, go somewhere, or maybe I won't search it. Well, the website is not. It's thinking long and hard. It's like, why are you making me do the internet and live stream at the same time? But okay, I do need to get these hotkeys going, don't I? So bring myself back. There I am. Hello. Oh, GME's back. I'm gonna disappear again. Okay, so here in GME we've got hundreds of thousands of shares. Nothing really in the millions. But, you know, consistently hundreds of thousands of shares, and their T35 dates look like we'll get some kicks around the same time, 18th or so. 11th, 12th, 13th, yeah, 18th is when we've got some. But right now the price is below a lot of these. We're at 147, so whoever generated these naked shares can easily cover and make $50 off of that investment at the moment. But if they start making runs on the stocks, then you know those will go up. Okay, make myself big again. Make myself look big. Bing. There we go. And then I go there, and I go down to there. Ha! Ta-da! There we go. Okay. So let's go here and back to the old chat. Did I miss anybody? There was perhaps. Okay. Matt Newton, sorry, I missed Matt Newton's super chat. If I'm in U.S. Treasuries and the debt ceiling doesn't get lifted, what happens to my precious bonds? They lose value. So USA has AAA plus credit rating, meaning we pay our debts. We pay the interest rate on our debts, and we pay those bonds off. Now, if we default, if we don't pay the interest on some of those bonds, then and we default, well, our credit rating drops, and it might drop significantly. The last time it dropped was in 2011 when we were on a precipice of this debt ceiling, and you know the market dropped 20% as a result. But this, if you get close to not being able to pay, they'll drop your credit rating just as a warning. If you don't pay at all, you might drop a lot. And if your credit rating drops a lot, that might push U.S. Treasury bonds into junk bond status, which is a terrible, terrible, terrible thing to have happen to U.S. Treasuries, because U.S. Treasuries are the foundation of the entire global economy. Like I've said before, you know, Social Security buys them to as long-term investment to paying off old people to make sure they don't like live in cardboard boxes and eat cat food. Your pensions buy them. Banks use them. Institutional hedge funds use them. Sovereign wealth funds use them. You know, we've got $1 trillion in bonds bought by the Saudis, by the Japanese, by the Chinese. Tons of European sovereign wealth funds use them because it's a solid asset. It's like gold in that you can invest in it. The value won't change that much. It'll be a steady investment over a long period of time. And if the credit rating drops and all of a sudden $29 trillion in bonds are worth 30% less than what they are now as a result of that junk bond status because we defaulted, then every single solitary investment fund on earth loses 30% of their value, like that. The entire stock market will just boom instantly. So yeah, that's what happens if the U.S. if Congress doesn't raise the debt ceiling, is that we default. Right now we're running on fumes. We are running on fumes as to whatever little cash the Treasury gets in at the moment is doing nothing but paying interest on bonds and probably not paying much else. So we are in that like limbo right now. We're in the doldrums, in the calm before the storm. And I guarantee you that the banks and big institutions right now are hedging against a drop in bond value. So that's where we are at the moment. Jordan, super chats. Hi Houston, I am just looking for some confirmation bias. Is there any way AMC will not squeeze? Keep up the good work. I don't see how. I mean, they have to buy so many billions of shares. And we've seen no effort on the part of hedge funds to close those positions and buy up tons of AMC. So we're just, all they do is they hide their positions, and they're doing the same thing with GME. They're doing the same thing with all these other stocks, is that they do debt swaps. They will, let things expire with their market maker status and just go, I'm not going to pay that. So where we are right now is just where we were, 6 months ago, just sitting and waiting. And all they've managed to do, I think, in that time is generate more naked shares and make their obligations larger. The only reason the price has gone down is the result of putting all the buy pressure through the dark pools and payment for order flow systems. If you look at Fidelity's daily graph of the most traded stocks, you'll see that the buy pressure for GME and AMC is like 5-to-1. So 5 times as many buy orders as there are sell orders, and the price should skyrocket. But they are routing all that stuff through the dark pool to keep that buy pressure from showing up in the exchange. So we're just sit and wait. Someone was asking me about the movement to the CAT system by the DTCC. It's happening in September, I suppose. I've been trying to find, if anyone has an article that can send me about that, I've been trying to find one. Every time I search it, I just get the ACAT system that's been around since like 1985. And I can't find anything on whatever change it's going to be to the CAT system. So if anyone has like a Reddit article or, I don't know, anything on that, please send it to me because I'd like to read up on it. I would greatly appreciate it. Okay. Tomorrow I will be on with the Gherkin, the investment pickle. What was it? Pickle investing? I can't remember. And then next week I'm going to do stock money again with Trader John. So a couple of collabs coming up, just so you know. Okay. All right. That's other big news. Bank of America. So in April, Bank of America issued like $13 billion in bonds, and everyone's like, $13 billion in bonds? Are you mad? Well, now they're issuing $123 billion in bonds. What? What kind of bank offers like G7 level bonds to the public? That is absolutely nuts. There's been rumors about Bank of America being in some serious trouble, and I think issuing $123 billion in bonds kind of tells you that Bank of America might be in some kind of trouble. That's just absolutely bonkers. So yeah, AJM, both of these nuts, they are absolutely. Who raises $123 billion in debt on their company? That their entire job is to take people's money and lend it out. Like, what? Why are they borrowing so much? Bank of America needs money and loans. They can go to the Federal Reserve and get 0% loans from the Federal Reserve. So why are they going to the public with $123 billion worth of bonds that they'll be paying? It'd be nominal interest, but it'll be more than what they would get from the Federal Reserve. It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know what is going on with Bank of America that will lead them to doing $123 billion in debt. My head can't wrap around it. Other than perhaps they have a whole bunch of hedge funds that they lent to, and they know that they're going to have to pay off $123 billion in debt soon. Easy E. Hey Houston, how exactly might the squeeze initiate? If hedgies borrow from their own subsidiaries, Who starts the margin call? Well, my guess is that there's still a whole bunch of debt taken from not their subsidiaries, but from prime brokers and investment banks. And there's, I believe, a sunk cost fallacy going on with some of the investment banks where they're like, oh crap, these guys owe 30 to 50 times on their assets. We can't afford to cover those positions. It's cheaper for us just to keep giving them some more money and see if they can get themselves out of this. And all it's doing is just digging a bigger hole, and they're getting the hole dug. And the banks go, oh crap. Now they've like, between 40 and 60 times their margin, their assets, and maybe if we just give them a little more money, they'll get themselves out of this. So I think the entire market is in some sort of weird sunk cost fallacy, infinite loop, where they're hoping someone smart comes along and figures out a magic way to get the hedge funds out of this hole that they're in. Dig up, stupids. But, yeah. Okay. There's a bullish gnarly shirt story behind it. It's got birds. It's got, I think, tigers. It's got mostly chickens and peacocks. Does it have tigers on it? Or is it my other one? No, I think it's just fowl. This is a fowl shirt. This one I got at a thrift store when I was in high school. This is like I don't know how old this shirt is, but I've had it for over 20 years. I like it. It's very plastic and it's very warm. That's the entire story of this shirt. Okay. Okay. All right, looking for questions. Oh, there's a super chat from Josh, Pet Pals, Tennessee. If you know Neil deGrasse Tyson, come on, hook this man up. I will not stop trying for this little. Thank you, Houston, for everything. Thank you, Josh. I would love if I will definitely. I'll pay someone to help me figure out how to get an interview on this, working on this thing. If I get Neil deGrasse Tyson on here, let's bring him on. Let's talk nerds. Hey, Houston, always love your show and insight. T+35 is coming from Metamaterial. Are the hedgies going to cover, or does the market automatically buy those shares? Banking on a big move next week. Because of the CUSIP change, they don't have a way of hiding that debt. All those shares must be recalled that were shorted because they don't exist anymore. Because all those shares were Torchlight, which no longer exists, or Metamaterial from the Canadian exchange, which no longer exists. So they have to cover those shares or close those positions come T+35. And that's just the nature of that CUSIP change. If they were some OTC stock no one cared about, those trading at 10,000th of a penny, no one would care. They'd be like, meh, it's only $5 anyway. But right now it's probably $1 billion or more that somebody owes. Metamaterial is trading at $21 a share when they shorted a whole bunch of it, which I think the 3-to-1 split makes it around $7 a share, which is still half of what it's trading at right now. And so they owe money, and the volume is not showing that they're closing out those positions at this price, which would be a smart thing to do right now because it's half the price of what it was. You can still make your profit. But then there's the fact that Wealth Simple and 212 and a couple other brokerages still haven't issued the Torchlight preferred stock dividend. A lot of people don't have them yet, and so we might see automatic recalls at T+35 just based on that. So I'm hoping for big moves on it as well. I've got my mess of shares, and let's go Metamaterial. Okay. Weezer, W33Z3R. At what stage does the SEC do anything? The short hedge fund can just theoretically kick the can indefinitely, correct? Theoretically-ish. There does come a point when the debt obligation is so big and someone needs their money that they do a margin call. We saw Archegos get margin called and liquidated, and their losses were $30 billion. That caused such a mess that it dropped the share value of like 5 big investment banks. And even today, we saw recently someone posted something to Reddit about how Credit Suisse still owes like $1 billion on that, and they've just been like holding that debt, going, ignore this, don't pay attention to me. So there's probably similar things with JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs and Nomura and whoever else that they took margin out with. I think right now the big fear is that there's so many hedge funds tied up in this gone bonkers short play that they know they don't have the tools, the capital, the means to do anything about margin calls with these groups. And I think they're pretty terrified to be the first one to do it, because no one has the cash on hand to buy these positions, to close out these positions. It's like a weird like Mexican standoff. Everyone's like got their guns pointing at each other and just who's gonna be the first one to pull that trigger, because everyone's dead once you do. Yeah, mutually assured destruction. Josh Pet Pals, Tennessee. I watched an informative video on the largest black holes estimated to exist. Can you give me a little bit more detail on what forms a black hole, and do they just constantly stay in existence? Okay, so black holes basically come in all sorts of sizes. Oh man, the numbers in my head don't have exact. So to go from a white dwarf to a neutron star, you have to be 1.4 solar masses. To go from a neutron star to a black hole is 8 solar masses to collapse the neutron degeneracy. Oh man, I have to look that up. I can't remember exactly. Don't quote me on that because my brain is really big. It had to be really big. Let's just put it that way. Now, we usually measure the mass of things in solar masses. Like the mass of our own sun is 1. That's 1 solar mass is our sun, Sol. And the black holes in the center of galaxies can be huge. Sagittarius A, which is the black hole at the center of our own Milky Way, is estimated between 2 and 6 million solar masses. So 2 to 6 million suns of mass material inside the black hole at the center of our galaxy. Now, other galaxies, pretty much all elliptical galaxies and spiral galaxies have black holes in the center. These elliptical galaxies have freakish black holes. We're talking black holes that are 50 million, 50 billion, 100 billion, a trillion solar masses at the center of some of these supermassive elliptical galaxies. And how those supermassive black holes formed is still hypothetical, but the common belief is, Big Bang goes boom. It's super hot. All the once it cools off a little bit, the quarks form into protons, and those protons can make hydrogen atoms. It's still pretty hot, so some of those protons smacked into each other and made helium atoms. So it was like 90% hydrogen, 10% helium shortly after the Big Bang. And then gravity started to take over and pulling these clouds of material into star systems and into galaxies. And once those stars started forming, big enough stars burned really hot because there's a lot of pressure. They formed lots of heavy materials and then exploded supernova explosions, spreading out this heavy material, anything above helium on the periodic table, and those started forming other stars. So then as time went on, stars got heavier and heavier and heavier with more metal content. Basically, astronomers call metals anything heavier than helium. And so by the time our sun formed about 4.5 billion years ago, we were around 5% metals and 95% hydrogen and helium. So that's how many cycles of these big stars had gone through for the previous 10 billion years until our star was able to make up that heavier material. Now, galaxies due to the Big Bang, they all have like inertia with them, and they go out in their own directions, and sometimes they collide, and they might fall under this gravitational pressure, and they'll collide. And when they do, they kind of spiral into each other, and then their black holes collide and make a supermassive black hole. And when black holes are actively pulling in material, they're also giving off a ton of radiation in the accretion prism around them, and those things have gigantic radiative pressure. And so you can look at, between 2 billion years after the Big Bang to around 7 billion years after the Big Bang, there were tons of these things called quasars. And quasars were galaxies where the black hole is super active in the middle, and they're just like these like laser beams of X-rays are blasting out of their poles. You can look in radio waves and see like all this material just billowing out of the galaxies. And so early galaxies shed a whole bunch of gas and dust out into space, into the void of space, due to the active radiation pressure inside of these black holes. And when the big galaxies collided, that radiation pressure might be so great it got rid of all gas and dust. So if you look at an elliptical galaxy, they're kind of shaped like a gold football. All the stars in them, the youngest stars are from whenever that last collision happened in that galaxy, and all the dust got stripped away, so no new stars could form. So there's only old folks around in those big galaxies, and the black holes can just be freakish. I'm serious. Like, there are black holes that have like 1 trillion times the mass of our own sun in some of those ones. Was it M? Oh, I had to forget my galaxy numbers here. I'm going to look at one of my PowerPoints, because the names for all these things are just letters and numbers. But there are supermassive black holes that are just freakish. And, we are on a collision course with Andromeda. So Andromeda is a slightly larger spiral galaxy to the Milky Way. And they're 2.2 million light years away. So it's going to be a long time before they finally collide. But when they do, the supermassive black hole that will form in the middle will probably blow all the gas and dust that are in our two galaxies away, and we'll just be stuck as this aging football in space. And do they constantly stay in existence? Well, Hawking radiation was something that Stephen Hawking had proposed, which is, I don't know if you remember a couple of shows ago, I talked about how matter will blink into existence, yet matter and antimatter will blink into existence randomly, collide, vanish forever, and leave behind a gamma ray photon. Well, Stephen Hawking proposed that black holes could theoretically evaporate, because right at the event horizon, you'd have matter and antimatter appear. And if the antimatter is on one side of the event horizon and the matter's on the other, then the matter goes into space, and the antimatter combines with some sort of matter inside of the black hole and slowly evaporates it over, trillions of years. But then again, like, wouldn't the odds of a piece of matter falling in and antimatter going into space be just as great? So wouldn't it just stay the same? And then he also compared black holes sort of to like a garbage disposal. Like, if you just shove a bunch of stuff in a garbage disposal and flick the switch, it can go gobble, 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 but it might be so messy that some stuff splatters out. And I always thought that was kind of a funny analogy. But we do see black holes colliding. What's the gravitational wave detectors? There's one in Hanford, Washington, and one down in Louisiana. And they're these big 90-degree angle like lasers, and they go for miles. And the way they work is the gravitational waves from a collision of neutron stars or black holes cause these like strange little space-time continuum wobbles, and they fire a laser out, and it splits in a 50% mirror, and it goes two directions at 90 degrees, and it hits two mirrors the other end and then come back. And if it's perfect and there's no gravitational waves, the lasers will cancel each other out before they reach the sensor. But every once in a while, one of those tracks due to the gravitational waves will stretch a micrometer in one direction or another. And if they do so, then they come out of phase, and one of the lasers will make its way to the detector, and we can start saying, oh, gravitational waves are on their way. And due to the curve of the Earth, with those two different wave detectors, one in Washington, one in Louisiana, they can start to pinpoint what direction they should point a telescope at to see the collision. So a few years ago, they finally got these systems dialed in after 30 years of trying, and I think it was 2017 maybe, and they said, oh, we got some gravitational waves, everyone point your telescopes over here, and they watched two neutron stars collide, and their collision and the subsequent black hole that they had was a huge explosion, and it generated tons of heavy metals like uranium and gold and lead and stuff like that. So some of the propositions about where heavy metals came from may have not been from just traditional supernovas, but from the collisions of these large objects. I got a drink after that spiel. Okay, I missed like a billion super chats while I was talking about black holes here. Let's get scrolling. What did I miss? Oh, the Queen of England apparently was getting in trouble there. Sorry, Your Highness. Okay. Darby super chats. Could you elaborate on the idea of making similar moves as the banks regarding preparing for the media to start talking about the debt ceiling? Yeah. Okay. Again, not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. But what I did was I bought puts in excuse me, I'm burpy again. I bought puts in HYG, and I bought calls on VIX or VXX, which is a fund that trades along with the VIX index, and I bought puts on SPY. So SPY and SPX, those last time in 2011, those went down 20% due to the danger of the debt ceiling not being passed, and that tracks along with S&P 500, which if the debt ceiling hurts, then corporate debt around the world hurts, and all those share prices will go down. And that's kind of how I'm hedging against that. And I don't have enough money to buy huge amounts of those, but I bought a few that if those lotto tickets play in the next month or two, then woohoo! I got myself some cash. I can, I don't know, maybe sit on the beach longer in Hawaii after my friend's wedding. PB, can you repeat the Bank of America bond topic again? What is benefit to them doing that? Yeah, so Bank of America is issuing $123 billion with a B dollars in bonds, and we don't quite know why they are doing something that horrible. It is pretty bonkers that they're offering that much. In April, they did 13 billion, I think the number was, and the media was like, "That is so much money for a bank to be issuing. Why are you doing that?" But now we're 10 times that with this offering, and it can't be good. It can't be good when your bank has to borrow $123 billion. There is no good news in the entire universe that can make up for taking on that kind of debt as a bank, and not doing so through the Federal Reserve, which can offer you that money at 0% interest, versus paying whatever percentage you can be paying to investors for that. I honestly don't know what they're hoping to do, but my guess is they're preparing for something gnarly. Yeah. 0x2764 asks, what's the Schwarzschild radius of Citadel? P.S. The dirty jar, something on your shelf, makes you more trustworthy. Yeah, my which arm? This one. That right there, my poo water from diamond mining in Red Feather Lakes, Colorado. Yes. I think Citadel is going to collapse into something very small here soon, and perhaps evaporate out of existence. Okay. Man, Queen of England and Queen's Guard. The Queen of England and Queen's Guard are here. Goodness gracious, they're both here going bonkers in the chat. All right. Okay, the British are coming. Oh, they've got a whole series of trolls that have popped up. Mrs. K, thank you for the super chat there. Thank you. Dennis Vuutos, I'm saying that right, Vuutos. You believe that a stock split NFT will happen for GME, and would it help in the MOASS? Keep up the great work, buddy. Big fan from Montreal, Quebecois. I don't think it would hurt. So the NFT, the idea of the NFT again is you issue a dividend that cannot be, it's not fungible. And if it's not fungible, then no one has the ability to create a fake one as a payment in lieu, a PIL, and put it in everyone's account. And this forces an automatic recall of shares from those who have lent them out, because if they're not getting their dividend, then whoever borrowed it is failing their obligation, and you have to do a margin call. The idea of a stock split is that it forces a QSIP change on for that stock. And if your stock is not some penny stock in the OTC, and it's a big deal stock, like say an S&P 400 stock, then that also can force a recall of shares. And that's what Metamaterial is looking at right now, is that Metamaterial had a QSIP change as a result of their merger. And so there's going to be a whole bunch of shares that need to get purchased, and it's going to cause a buy pressure here in a couple weeks as we get to that T+35 date. So there are certain things that Gamestop, I think, can do with a stock split or with an NFT that would be very beneficial. And I want to thank my mods for, I have no idea what the British invasion is in the chats, but thank you for taking care of whatever it is. I don't, thank you. Okay, I gotta scroll through and see if I'm missing anybody that, okay, Jason Boucher. Have you been to the post office lately? If yes, how's the shirt fit? Oh, yes, I got the shirt. Where did I put the package? One sec. I forgot to thank you for that. I got it yesterday. What did I do with that package? Where is it? Oh, I left downstairs. Right here. All right, here we go. Sorry to leave you folks for a sec. I had to get... Jason, thank you so much for the shirt. This is an awesome shirt. Citadel burning. I love it. Trying to figure out... this should be the shirt for when the big margin call happens for Citadel. I might save it for that day. Thank you, Jason. It fits wonderfully. It's perfect. I love it. He'll send me a whole bunch of cool little things he found on the beach of Lake Superior, and labeled them, except the tape got a little messed up. I'm going to like relabel them again. Thank you, Jason. That was so kind of you. And I've ordered a post office box of my own. I need to, I don't know what number it is. I have to go to the post office after this show and be like, hey, what's my post office box number? And if you've got, I don't know, cool shirts you want to send me, you'll be able to send it to that address. Okay, Ethereum, this is Preston Becker. And thanks again, Jason. That's so wonderful of you. Preston Becker, Ethereum 2.0, you must be stoked. Oh my goodness. I've got 100 million Problemo coins that I want to give to everybody. And it needs to just launch already so that I can give everyone the Problemo coins. And we can get Problemo coins out there trading around. For those of you who don't know, my second show I did was on crypto coins, and as a joke I created my own crypto coin, and then discovered that to give it to anybody was going to bankrupt me, because it was like $20 to transfer any amount of my Problemo coins into anyone's pocket with the Ethereum gas, and it was going to cost me like hundreds of thousands of dollars to give everybody their coins. So I've been sitting and waiting for Ethereum 2.0, because now it should only cost me like 20 cents, and I can afford that. I can send everyone their coins for that much in Ethereum gas. Yeah, so come on, Ethereum 2.0. I need you to finish and launch so that I can do this. And that might be what GameStop's also waiting for, because if they have to give a NFT to every single solitary shareholder at $20 a piece for 4 to 10 million shareholders, that's a lot of money. So my guess is that they might have been waiting for Ethereum 2.0 before they do anything with this crypto dividend, because the gas fees are just bonkers. Okay. Again, mods, thank you so much for taking care of the. Well, it looks like we have the founding fathers in here as well, causing trouble. So thank you for whatever it is, dealing with whatever they were doing. Okay. All right. I mean, I feel kind of honored that I've got bots attacking me. Like, there's somebody going out of their way, programming something specifically to try and like get in here and ruffle feathers. I'm honored. I'm honored, founding fathers and British invasion, that you could be such horrible dickbags to come in here. All right. Tian asks, what do you think of the Gary Gensler interview today? I only read a couple of clips. I haven't seen the whole thing because I'm futzing around with the computer. But the interesting thing is that he made a specific note. Someone asked him about regulating cryptocurrencies, and he's basically like, we don't have time. We're dealing with this Gamestop thing. And I thought that was very telling that he made a specific effort to point that out. Like, hey, we're so focused on whatever this thing is that we don't have time to deal with the crypto stuff at the moment. And I don't know if you saw the I think it was a Reddit post last week before, where someone put in a Freedom of Information Act request in June to the SEC for all details on Citadel. And the SEC responded, hey, we can't give you any documentation in an active investigation. And the folks were like, wait a minute, no, I'm gonna put this in again. I want any information, even if it's not pertaining to an active investigation. And they're like, no, it's all an active investigation. We can't give you anything. So that tells me that there are eyes on the prize in this case, and they're probably gobbling up as much info as they can. They probably won't do anything until Citadel is essentially powerless and bankrupted, and that's when they'll probably go after everyone, because it's much easier to build a case against someone when they don't have the money to hire the best lawyers in there. Yeah. Okay. Heat Inferno says, Houston, gonna have to go to subscription real quick. Oh yeah, there's some sort of setting, I don't know where it is, where only people that subscribe can chat. I don't know, I'll have to figure that out. Someone told me about that and I totally forgot to investigate that. Yeah, so sorry. I guess those guys are being racist. I didn't see any of the chats because my mods are so amazing that while I'm answering a question, they're taking care of this stuff. When the MOASS happens, we're gonna have to like all go to a beach somewhere as a giant thank you for taking care of that stuff for me. Okay. Okay. Lots of chat about bots. King Griffin's paying for racist bots now. Huh, maybe. All right. They don't realize that I've got the best mods in the game taking care of all this for me. Okay. Mr. Snotty asks, a great name, can you speculate a bit on what Apes activist investors can do with all their firepower to keep the good fight going post-MOASS? Ooh. One thing I want to do is create a super PAC of some kind whose goal it is to see healthcare for everybody in the United States. And that's one of those good fights I'd like to do, because I got screwed by health insurance companies. Everyone I know has been screwed by them. They are taking so much of our economy. They're 1/7 of our entire economy is essentially health insurance companies. And so much wasted energy and time and money goes into this system that I would like to see it vanish forever and create a system that just takes care of people at cost, and the rest of that money can be invested elsewhere. As far as with the financial markets, I think that the problem that's going to be caused during the MOASS is going to be so big that Congress won't be able to ignore naked short selling anymore, and that there's going to be specific laws that go into changing that. I am thinking that perhaps I don't know. I look at my class schedule for the fall, but depending on if I've got to teach in person or not, I might try and take a trip in October to DC and personally lobby members of Congress, if I can, about naked short selling. And maybe we can set up some sort of trip, and a bunch of us can go and hit a whole bunch of congressmen and women and be like, hey, this is the deal with naked short selling. This is what it's doing to our markets. This is how it needs to be fixed. And this is the problems it's going to cause. And it's going to ruin everything. Because that face-to-face meeting with them matters a whole bunch compared to just sending off a whole bunch of emails or phone calls that might, annoy the hell out of some intern. But being able to get a meeting face-to-face with a member of Congress and talk about this stuff goes a long way. And we don't have the financial resources at the moment to be like, hey, Congressman, talk to me about this, and here's $2,000 for your campaign. So, all we can do is plead as constituents and citizens of the United States to, get this information in their head. Because once it's spinning around in their head, then they're going to start seeing it everywhere. And I think a lot of them aren't quite realizing the massive effect that this has on everyone in the financial markets. So, I think those are some things we can do now, even, and in the future. I think a lot of the investments of the apes aren't necessarily going to be in the market itself, but are probably going to be in their communities and in friends and family. I talked about this before, but if I'm rich, I want to be able to bring all my friends and family with me and see their dreams play out as well, because their success is my success, right? And if your mom's dream is to have a dog grooming business, I don't see why you shouldn't, give her the seed money so she can do her dream. Or your best friend wants to start a brewery, give him a check. Be a 49% partner in that brewery. Let him start it up. So I think a lot of the investments aren't necessarily going to be in the market itself, but in real estate, in business ventures for friends and family, in charity, perhaps political action. So I think there's going to be a big spread of where our money goes after this. Okay, Eve Doster. Houston, do you have a photographic memory? And if not, to what do you attribute your ability to remember with such specificity? I have a pretty good memory. I don't have a photographic memory. Like, I'm terrible with names. I have to get someone's name like 5 or 10 times before I remember it. My grandmother, Mary Ritter. Mary Ritter had an eidetic memory that was just phenomenal. I actually wrote a tweet about this a little bit ago, but you could have asked her, like, hey, Grand Mary, May 17th, 1937, what was the box score of the Boston Red Sox game? And she would close her eyes and tell you the exact, who had how many hits, whatever. Oh, so-and-so had 6 hits that day. It was a record. She could go through that, tell you exactly the pitching stats, the batting stats, and all that stuff. You could take a book, and you would take a book and like open it like this and then close it again and ask her, okay, tell me what's on that page. And she, from memory, could recite the entire page. And it was phenomenal. And then she got into her 70s. At some point, like 75, 76 years old, it just turned off. And she no longer could remember everything she saw. And this just destroyed her because she actually had to learn how to learn. Before, she just did everything from memory. Like, I know how to cook because I read this recipe once in 1967 and it's in my brain. Well, that memory went away. And she couldn't just look at a newspaper page and read it from memory anymore. She had to like actually sit there and read the page. It kind of destroyed her that she didn't have that system anymore. And having to learn how to learn when you're in your late 70s is a brutal system. But no, I don't have an eidetic memory. It's photographic memory. I just have a pretty good memory. And sometimes it gets me into trouble because I will take two good memories and make them into like, I'll flip them around in my head or something. And then I trip over myself. But you don't want to play Trivial Pursuit against me, I can tell you that much. I have never lost a game of Trivial Pursuit. And if I do show up to trivia night at the brewery, everyone groans. Because I used to have a trivia team, and then, you know, they get married and go off and have kids, and then it's just me, this loser, all by myself. So I started a trivia team called Playing With Myself. And I've gotten several perfect games at trivia night and won the grand prize, which is a $25 gift card to the brewery. I have like $600 in gift cards to the brewery that I don't use because I don't drink. I just have like a Pellegrino and then kill everybody at trivia. But yeah, you don't want to play trivia against me. That's my greatest strength in the entire world, is mundane information. All right. Joey Alford, you mentioned an exit strategy for GME. Can you elaborate? Okay, so this is how my brain's working on the MOASS, is that there'll be FOMO. There'll be a retail drive that pushes the price higher and higher and higher and higher, just like there was in January. And we got to that level in January where it was about to cause margin calls across the board, because the amount of money and value going into the GME shares was growing at such a rate that the assets under management and liquidity of the hedge funds couldn't keep up. And through, you know, basically shady practices, trading the buy button got turned off and people could only sell. And this gave time for the hedge funds to get their liquidity dumped on them from Point72 and Citadel and others. So the way I see the MOASS playing out is there'll be that bit of FOMO of people like, oh crap, it's happening again, and they're buying and buying and buying and buying, driving that price up. And there will come a point when the margin calls happen and the hedge funds are expected to inject liquidity into their assets under management to counteract the growth of their margin. And if they can't do that and they default, that's when the buying computers take over. That's when the prime brokers are forced to liquidate these hedge funds and start buying GME, start buying AMC, start buying BlackBerry and whatever else. And they're just going to be buying whatever shares are available. If there's a whole bunch of shares offered at market, they'll buy those. If there's a whole bunch of shares offered in limit orders, and they'll buy whatever the cheapest is, they'll go to the next level and buy those until those obligations are closed. Once the prices get to stupid levels, once they start buying those limit orders at stupid levels, retail is not participating in that anymore. And that's when we know it's just the trading computers doing all the buying. And from whatever estimate we have for the total number of synthetic shares out there, that's how many they have to buy. And if we see the volume totals after several days start to approach that level, that's when the price is probably absolutely nuts. And that's when I plan on starting selling one share at a time. Because the minute they've closed those positions, the buy pressure vanishes and there's no selling on the way down. There's a lot of people that talk about selling on the way down. I don't think there's the buy pressure available to do any of that. Once those trading computers have met their obligations, they just stop buying and the price will just collapse instantly. So that's why I plan on selling my first share when I think it's enough for, if I were to have to sell all my shares at once, I could retire. And I'm going to sell that first share probably around 100,000. And the next share I'll raise it 50% and sell that one for 150. And then raise the next one 50%, sell that at 225. Raise the next one at 50%, sell that at 337, and work my way up until I think perhaps the volume's at almost a point where they've ready to close their positions, and then I might just dump the rest on the market at whatever ridiculous price that might be. And be happy My biggest fear is getting too greedy that I miss it. And I don't want to sacrifice my ability to retire comfortably because I got too greedy. Already at this point, I've made way more money than I've invested into these stocks. And so I've already won. Why would I want to risk going right back to where my investment level and being like, well, okay, I didn't get to do my retirement like I wanted. So that's my exit strategy, Joey. Okay. Visceral Records Live. Can they switch to manual trading? They probably can, but will they? Everything's automated, and to do anything these days, you have to do as fast as possible. I don't know if they would switch to manual trading. They might put limits on how fast you can trade a stock, because right now they're doing trades in hundredths of a second, buy here, sell there, and taking those like 10,000th of a penny or whatever, and just counting on sheer volume to make a profit. And to me, that is essentially a manipulation at that point. So I would like to see, and I chatted with a couple of guys online with Short the VIX and the Mass Investor and GME about this, and they did bring a good point that if you slow down trading, there's other ways you can manipulate. But I would like to see the entire market slow down a bit and get rid of the high frequency trading and make some sort of limit. You've got 10 minutes from when you buy a stock until you're allowed to sell it again, and it's just a clock gets put on the stock. So I don't know. I don't think big institutions should be allowed to have tools that retail investors do not have. I would like to see everything put at a playing level that's level. So I don't know. That's one of the things I'd love to talk to members of Congress about, is about like leveling the playing field for everybody, so that we retail investors don't get screwed over time and again because they have access to tools and systems and information that we never will, and we only get it post-mortem months later. That's not a free market, and a free and fair market. And there needs to be these regulations that kind of put people into the same playing field. Justin Shackelford, thank you for the super chat there. All right, I keep forgetting to take more water sips. Okay. Bleezy Trades. Houston current series 763, working at top 3 broker. I am XXX AMC Ape and working in industry. In my opinion, you provide the most thorough information. Thanks so much. Oh, thank you, Bleezy. Sometimes I totally trip over myself. Like the other day, right before I went on air, someone was like, hey, did you know that AMC's back on the threshold list? I was like, no way, let's talk about it on the show. And I didn't do my due diligence, and that person apologized because they were looking at an old graph from last month. Oops. So I don't always get it right. I will get too excited sometimes and not follow up like I should. All right, so but thank you, Bleezy Trades. Yeah. Okay, did I miss any others while I was chatting? I've got to scroll through here and Pastor Blunt around. What is the eviction moratorium all about? So the eviction moratorium was started at the beginning of the pandemic because a whole bunch of people, like 20% of the workforce, lost their jobs. We are a very large service economy, so lots of people in hotels, tourism, restaurants, things like that, all of a sudden couldn't work because they didn't have their jobs weren't open. So they all went on unemployment, and the unemployment systems for different states work differently. Some of them don't include tipped wages, some of them do. And so a lot of people didn't have the money to pay their rents or their mortgages. So a moratorium got put in place because the last thing you want during a global pandemic is a whole bunch of people who can't shelter in place because they're on the streets. So the CDC said, hey, you can't evict people. You can't foreclose on their properties while this pandemic is going on. And they extended it a couple of times, and the extension ended on July 31st. And Congress, rather than do their job and vote to extend the moratorium, went on vacation. And a couple of Congress people were absolutely livid about this and did a protest in front of the Capitol for a few days, sleeping outside. Cori Bush led it, and I can't remember who else was part of it. And they're like, hey, get back in session. We need to approve this. And Biden finally listened, and yesterday, using emergency powers of the CDC, extended it for another 2 months so that people can't get evicted. But in that span of the 2 or 3 days where people weren't protected, a whole bunch of people did get evicted. And it's pretty eviction's pretty gnarly. You basically lose all of your belongings, you get kicked out of your home, and your credit rating gets destroyed. So you're now homeless on the street with no belongings and a bad credit report, so that when you do apply to try and live somewhere else, the landlord might just go, no, you can't live here. So it becomes this like cycle, because it's very expensive to be poor in America. Very expensive to be poor. So that stuff gets gnarly, and it becomes a downward spiral for a lot of people. And the government gave $47 billion in grants to various states, to all the states, to help pay back what's owed for a lot of back rent. The thing is that there's like 38 states who have never released that money to their counties. I live in a state, thankfully, that has done that. So all the counties have these funds now, and they're helping people pay back their rent. But you have a lot of other states that never made that money available to their citizens, and there's a whole bunch of people that are still on the cusp of losing their homes, even though the money's available to pay the landlords, to get that stuff paid, and catch everyone up on their rent. We have just some monumentally cruel people that run governments in this country, and it really pisses me off that, we're a freaking society. Let's help each other. That's the reason why we group together. So, rage against that machine. Okay. I just missed a couple super chats. Oh, where'd I go? Okay, that was Shackleford. And the super chat, Joey Alford. Thanks for the answer. Love from Toronto. Oh, most welcome, Joey. Preston Becker. Are you concerned about inflation at all? All these sweet tendies not worth as much as what we think. If a Big Mac is worth $4, $40. I'm not sure. I think your autocorrect hurt you there. Yeah. So right now there is inflation, but I think some of what's attributed to inflation is actually supply chain problems. So we have things like, if you read the news, these semiconductors and microprocessors that come from China are not making their way to auto companies. So auto companies can't actually put these chips into their cars and make the cars work the way they're supposed to. So automakers are restricted to how many new cars they can offer because they don't have as many chips to do this. And as a result of new cars not being available on lots and the price going up on them because due to supply and demand, we also saw a spike back in June in used cars. Used cars prices jumped like 50% because people who needed new cars need a new car now. And they're like, well, crap, I can't get one of these brand new cars. I'll just go get, 2017 from a used lot and drive that. And so the price shot up a whole bunch. So the inflation index for the United States, a large portion of that is the used car market that gets calculated into that. And as a result of the supply and demand issue that's all about the supply chain falling apart, used car prices went through the roof. Same thing with lumber prices. Lumber prices, it wasn't inflation necessarily causing lumber prices to skyrocket. It was the fact that a whole bunch of mills and logging operations had to shut down for a period of time during the pandemic. And a lot of these displaced workers found other places to go. And so when the mills did spool back up, they didn't have the same workforce to draw from. They have to worry about hiring new people. So their output was a lot lower. And so, again, supply and demand. Construction begins again, and people can't buy the OBS plywood they need, the 2x4s they need. And so that supply and demand causes the prices to go up. So I don't think it's necessarily inflation that's hitting a lot of the economy right now. I think it's the fact that when you start from zero again, there's a hiccup and a delay between when you can actually start getting the supplies you need to build this stuff and when you were ready to build these things. So right now, there may be some actual natural inflation there due to the value of the dollar technically dropping, but I think a lot of it is supply and demand. Now, when we get our tendies, is a different issue. We might see price spikes and weird things like Lamborghinis, as a whole bunch of apes are like, Italy, bring me your cars, and maybe luxury homes or something. But at the same time, there's probably going to be a giant, massive market dump of blue chips and similar bonds and these more traditional long-term investments as a result of liquidation and having to pay us our money. So, the greater economy may be hurt in the process of us winning our tendies, and when the economy goes down, the price of things go down because the demand goes down. So we might get deals on our Lamborghinis in the end because people who work the hedge funds won't be buying their new Lamborghinis. And we might get deals on homes because there might be a mortgage crisis as a result of a credit crunch, and people won't be able to buy their homes, but we can buy them with cash. So there might be a balance in the end between who has what. Just might just shift sides a little bit, and hence the greatest transfer of wealth in human history will be taking place. Chris Taylor, can you talk about the MBS meltdown versus current ETF ABS game? To me, it seems same with rehypothecation on top of rehypo with values, risks, magnitudes, underlying assets. Am I seeing this correctly? Man, that's a lot. Okay, so if we go to the repo reverse repo market at the moment, we're in a weird position where the Federal Reserve is taking cash out of the banks in return giving bonds, right? Because cash is seen as a liability in a bank's assets. They want, investments because the cash might fluctuate in value and whatever. So the bank is the Federal Reserve is trying to get cash out of the market at the moment as a way of easing inflation, because there's too much cash in the market, you get inflation. So they're doing the reverse repo. And then they announced that they're doing $500 billion in repo. So now they're going to be taking cash and buying bonds from banks. So now we got like a competing. We're taking cash from over here and we're giving it right back to them again. So it's this like cycle, this useless velocity of money cycle, and I don't really know where they're going with that. The MBS meltdown, current ETF ABS game. I think the ETFs would be more solid investments for people long term if there were rules about shorting them. But right now, the ETFs are just these tools for hedge funds to manipulate stock prices whenever they want. And so the ETFs aren't necessarily, matching and trading with true market mechanics and fundamentals behind them. I hope I'm answering this the right way for you. I may have to go a bit deeper into the MBS itself, and I'm sorry if I'm not going further with that for you, Taylor. But let me put that on my list here, because my brain is still a little fuzzy with the MBS meltdown. So MBS meltdown, and I'm gonna have to maybe tonight when I go on and fool with my new version for my setup here, that the wonderful Enraged Goose Studios made for me. I can touch on that while I'm messing around with the screen and trying to get everything set up. So sorry, I couldn't give you more than that. Okay. Oh shit. Where that's Chris Taylor. I think I missed one up here. Fuzzy Monkey. I missed Fuzzy Monkey. Sorry, Fuzzy Monkey. Fuzzy Monkey writes, big fan for many months. You are awesome, Houston. Oh, thank you. Make my ego go. I was wondering, since Metamaterial has a quiet period end Sunday and T+33 next week, do you think the price action will start going up Monday? Me, a GME ape. Well, where I already lost it. There it is. I bring this guy back up. Okay, Chrome, Bing, make my face go to Bing. I really do need to assign hotkeys to all this stuff so that I'm not bouncing around like a weirdo. So we have these guys. Let me go back to Metamaterial here. Looks like because the QSIP changed on the 28th of June, right? So it looks like maybe 29th of June is our first big failure to delivers of 8 million shares. And that's T+35 is the 19th. So it might not be next week that we see it. It'll probably be the week after. So the 19th is, let me bring up my little calendar here. August 19th is a Thursday. So it'll be T+2. So it might be on Tuesday the 17th or so when we start to see big buy pressure to gobble up shares for those FTDs. That's what it looks like to me. So it might not be next week. It might be the week after that we start to see the price action reflect that buying. So keep your eyes peeled on that. I'm sure there'll be people on like the Metamaterials subreddit that are paying a lot more attention to that stuff. Yeah, it's all right. Okay. All right, make my face big again. There I am. Hi. Okay. Webcam capture. And Google Chrome. There we go. All right, so we're getting there. I've got to make these hotkeys work. Okay, and then Fuzzy Monkey. I missed a couple other super chats here. Try to get to them. Justin Shackelford asks, Houston, it seems that the hedge funds are becoming less concerned with their manipulation tactics, becoming more extremely obvious. Good or bad for us? Well, I think the hedge funds know they're toast. They see the writing on the wall, and I think if I, try to put your brain into the shoes of some hedge fund manager, and you know that when the time comes, you're going to get eviscerated. So what do? You want to make sure that you come out on top, right? So you're going to use market maker status, naked shorting, whatever you can to generate as much cash as possible. And even if that cash is technically a liability on debts owed on these FTDs, you can still take that cash and dump it into a subsidiary in the Cayman Islands or Bahamas or British Virgin Islands or wherever there happens to be like weird banking loophole countries. And you can dump that cash in there in a subsidiary, and you can still say, because they are a wholly owned subsidiary, that you can count those assets into the assets of your hedge fund that's based here in America. But when the time comes and the liquidation happens, you can cut that cord really easily, because it's going to take a while for the federal government to get access to that cash. And the brokerages and the banks and the DTCC are not the federal government, and they do not have the ability to reach into the pockets of those foreign banks and pull the stuff out or freeze those assets. So my guess is that they are amassing as much cash as possible, probably taking that cash and investing into other markets, into crypto, into gold, into other things that whose ownership they can transfer elsewhere in the world, and that's their cut and run tactic. I wouldn't doubt if we see a whole bunch of U.S. Marshal notices for a whole bunch of rich guys that they're looking out for that managed to haul off with a bunch of money that should belong to billionaire clients of theirs and whatever. We saw that happen in the 2008 crisis of a lot of money laundering and people just cutting and running when their Ponzi schemes and other things fell apart. There was a great story. There's a Seattle couple, the Maestros, that were this investment couple that did real estate stuff in Seattle. And when things got hot, Mr. Maestro loaded up his wife with a whole bunch of jewelry, with like $20 million in jewelry. And then they just caught a one-way plane to France to go retire in their old age off of selling that jewelry at auction. So they, these people, they do have exit strategies that are much more sinister and badass and movie-worthy than, it's like heist films on a large scale. So I think that's probably what they're doing, is that they're like, well, we're going to get as much cash as we can while we can. And if I were a billionaire who'd put a bunch of money in these hedge funds, I'd be pulling my cash out now. I'd be like, I'm done. Give me money. I'm going to go figure out somewhere else to put this. Because they all have to be aware of how at risk they are right now with that stuff. Okay. Bullish super chats. Thanks for the great content. I'm learning tons at 52. Do you think that a new lockdown may trigger a MOASS? If so, how? Will real estate be a way to go? Ooh. I don't know. What I feel coming from the current administration is that they're trying to get people vaccinated. The vaccines might not quite be doing their job anymore because these variants are mutating so quickly. So we might be looking at booster shots and stuff like that in the future. I think no one wants to shut down. That if they can avoid it, they will. But the doubling rate right now in infections is so bonkers that we may not have a choice. Those exponential curves sneak up on you in a hurry. And right now, we'll be looking at, if we're at 90,000 infections a day as of yesterday, in 2 weeks, that would be, 2.5, so that's 180, plus another 45. We'll be at over 200,000 infections a day again, which will put us right back at the peak we were in wintertime when it was bad. We may have to look at what the fatality rates are and seeing how well the vaccine is keeping people from dying from COVID. But the general consensus is right now is that it's a pandemic among the unvaccinated, at least when it comes to hospitalizations and deaths. So, if those breakthroughs start to break through further into more hospitalizations of the vaccinated than what we're seeing now, we might see another shutdown happen. And if that's the case, then we'll be looking at, the Federal Reserve and Treasury injecting huge amounts of cash into the economy. But the only way they can do that is if the debt ceiling gets raised. So if we've got a confluence of, the debt ceiling not being raised, the moratorium on evictions coming to an end again on like October 3rd, and another shutdown looming in the fall, that's a pretty shitty perfect storm you've got going on. So, real estate is a good long-term investment if the economy tanks like that, because people can't buy homes. A lot of homes go up for auction and get sold for cheap. And if you are looking at, hey, I can buy this house and in 2 or 3 years I can sell it for 100 or 200% profit, that's the way to go. I think you're right. I think real estate is a good way to go in that situation if you've got the cash on hand. And if the MOASS triggers. So I think you're onto a good idea there. You just can't bank on it on being a quick flip in that case, because it's going to take a while for the banks to get the liquidity again to start offering credit for people to buy homes, for their jobs to be back. So, it took from the 08-09 crisis for home prices to really rebound. Wasn't until about 2013. So that was 4-ish years there that it took for home prices to really start to climb again in price. 2011, 2012 was really that bottom of the market. That's when my brother was able to buy a $500,000 house for $100,000 in 2012. And, and a few years later, it was worth 4 times what he paid for it. So I think you're on the right idea there, Bullish. Fabian Garcia. Houston, I asked this question of Trade Spotting. Would you like to know the answer? Can the hedge funds average up and still drive the price down so they can cover and be profitable at the lower price? So let's say they naked short at $4, and all of a sudden the stock price is worth $100. They've got a $96 liability there, and so that's a huge growth in their margin. They then short again at $96, but the price goes up to $150. So now they may have covered the $4 stuff, but they still owe like $50. But the price goes to $350, so they short again, and they short a whole bunch at $350, and if they short enough high enough volume at $350, then they can wait for it to drop back down to $150, buy up those shares and close those obligations, at least at the $350 level. But what I'm not seeing is, I mean, theoretically they probably could, but what I'm not seeing come out of them is that they're actually closing positions. It just seems like they're just shorting more and more at each level they get to. So I think theoretically they could probably average up and see the price drive down as a result of those shorting actions. But I don't know if they're ever using it to actually close positions, because we're not seeing the type of price action you need to see to close positions. What we're seeing is further shorting of the stock, and like when the price does climb, when we go from that 150 back up to 350 range before they're shorted again, we're not seeing enough buy pressure available for them to close those positions. If you look at that GME or GME graph inside of the highest traded stocks that Fidelity produces every day, you'll see that people aren't selling, they're just buying more. So all they're doing is just that the short hedge funds seem to be digging a hole. And while theoretically they probably could use shorting of the stocks at higher prices to close their positions, I don't think we've seen the volume at a high enough volume to represent that they're actually closing those positions. I think they're just making those positions larger. So I wonder what Jamie, how his thought process went on that. Yeah, I'll have to send me that video. I'd love to see his thought process on that one. That's a good question. Como Dosh, do you know if people who have previously had COVID are less susceptible to the Delta variant? It appears that they are not. Several of the variants, like the P1, which I think is that the Gamma or is that the Epsilon? It came out of Brazil. So if you look at Maris Brazil, April of last year, 75% of the population got COVID and they got ravaged. And then again in December, when the P1 variant came around, that entire population got infected again, and it was worse. So I think the difference between the Alpha variant, which was the first one that spread around the world, and the mutated ones that have come since then, is that the antibodies that the body generated for the Alpha aren't doing spit against the later variants. And I've even read of breakthrough cases of people that had the original variant, got the vaccine, and then got infected again. And so even with the vaccine and their original antibodies, that they didn't do that well, being kept from having a more serious infection. These RNA viruses, they mutate really, really quickly. So a virus can be made of DNA, which you've got your double helix, and you've got the C's, G's, T's, and A's that are bound with each other. And when they replicate, it's harder to have mutations within those ordered pairs they have. And when you have an RNA virus, you have the C's, G's, T's, and A's all just on one ladder. So when it replicates, it doesn't take that much for there to be a mutation that can cause a completely different way the virus can attach or force a cell to replicate, or to look so different to your helper T cells in your immune system so that it passes right by your defenses. This is why you can get the cold several times a year, because the cold virus is an RNA virus, and the cold virus can mutate quickly enough in a year's time that you'll just get the cold all over again. And in this case, because this isn't an endemic virus and we haven't been hit with it several times over over a course of decades, our immune system isn't quite attuned to how many different ways this thing can present itself, and to become one of the illnesses that we just get mild sickness over and over again, like we do with the cold. And because this is a novel virus, every single time that there's a mutation of some kind, it can present a whole new host of problems. And right now, the big host of problems seems to be how quickly it can overtake your cells and force replication. So the viral load is going through the roof. With the alpha variant, the viral load is very high. I had an R naught unmitigated of like 7. And when we did mitigate it, we got down to like 3 in places. The Delta variant has 1,000 times the viral load. So when they're doing the nasal swabs, they're finding 1,000 times more viruses in the nasal swabs. And then there's things like the Columbia variant, which just hit Florida, that has 1,000 times more viral load than the Delta variant. So now we're looking at 1,000,000 times more viral load in people's throats and noses over the original version of COVID-19. That's bonkers. And so these because so many generations of a virus can replicate in a human being, we're talking trillions and trillions of generations, the odds of mutation happening in that replication and becoming successful becomes so much greater. And that's why in large populations that got hit really hard, you're seeing these variants come out. And, coming out of India, coming out of Brazil, coming out of Argentina, coming out of Los Angeles in December, and or the UK, the B117 variant that came out of Bristol came out of kids, because everyone in England had shut down, but they're like, we'll send our kids to school. So the virus just bounced around a bunch of kids and then evolved to hit children harder, because that was the population that they had to draw from. So these mutations, they can happen really quickly, especially in a virus that can transfer at an R naught of 7. If you don't know what R naught is, R naught's basically a ratio of, if one person gets infected, how many people does that person infect? So an R naught of 7, one person gets infected, they infect 7 more people. The flu virus is like 1.3, so it slowly goes around the globe. So for every one person who gets infected, 1.3 people will get infected. Measles is incredibly high. It's like 30. So for every one person who gets measles, 30 people will get infected, which is why the MMR vaccine was so important. I mean, between 1850 and 1950, 200 million children died of measles in that time. So that's why getting a vaccine to be effective is really good. The measles virus is a DNA virus, so it doesn't mutate as fast. So it's easy to wipe it out with a vaccine than it is with an RNA virus. If you watch that Netflix special that came out right before the pandemic called Pandemic, they highlight this team, this virology vaccine startup that was trying to create a vaccine that would stop all flu viruses. And so they basically made this concoction that had every single solitary landmark that a flu virus has ever had for the last 100 years, and they injected it into fetal pigs, and the fetal pigs did not get flus of any kind. So as those pigs grew up, they got no flus. So they were, right before the pandemic, they were hoping to get FDA approval to start doing tests on human subjects and to just eradicate the flu virus entirely. And then, of course, coronavirus hit, and who knows what stage that they're in for that vaccine, because I like a lot of people, they may have be like, okay, we're going to put a pause on this and focus on this current pandemic. I'll have to look up and see. But that's a really interesting program that was on Netflix called Pandemic. It was like a 6-part documentary series. And they also followed around the USAID epidemiologists who worked around the world stamping out potential outbreaks. So a bunch of chickens got this bird flu, and they would go and help these Vietnamese farmers kill their chickens, pay them money for the chickens they killed, so that they weren't tempted to bring those birds to market and spread this flu. And that program, so they made the documentary. The documentary came out in January of 2020, but that program was axed by the Trump administration on October 29th, 2019. And 2 weeks later, COVID-19 appeared, and they were working with the Chinese government up until that point. So it's pretty crazy. I'm getting lost in my tangents here, but yeah. So what I should do is just do a show on how RNA viruses work. All right, Rabut Gimon. I hope I'm saying that right. What did you read or hear that convinced you of the MOASS? FUD from big players like Adam Aaron, Dave Lauer, who don't see market manipulation BS. I was talking with my friend John, who's a math professor back in Hawaii, and we were just chatting about, like, hey, this hasn't been closed. They haven't closed their positions. This is still ongoing. This is back when the price was $40 a share. And so I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to dump a bunch of money. I think I bought all my shares around $38 in GameStop. And of course, a few weeks later, March was absolutely wild. We saw huge volumes, tons of shares moving around, and that caused a big push. And all of a sudden, people realized, oh, the game's still on, and we saw a lot more retail investment happen after that. So that's pretty much what I saw and caused me to double down in this. There's definitely market manipulation. There's no way you can move 70% of all trades to the dark pool and have it not be manipulation. The dark pool needs to end. That's period. There needs to be no dark pool whatsoever, and every trade needs to be made through an exchange. And I want to see the government force that. We should have no dark pools. So there is obvious market manipulation going on that's causing price action to go one way or the other, based upon what these hedge funds have and the tools and access they have. And Adam Aaron can say that he doesn't see market manipulation when he did market manipulation. When he offered 11 million shares, he didn't make it to retail. He took those 11 million shares, signed dark pool deals with hedge funds that had shorted the stock, and then traded it at an unknown price. We have no idea what Adam Aaron sold those shares for to those hedge funds. So, the manipulation is everywhere. Okay. Matt Everts, midweek cola on me after MOASS. Should toss one back together. Thank you, Matt. I would love to. Got to make another Costco run and go get some more Mixie Coke. Chekuseki, question about selling during MOASS. Trading platforms restrict setting crazy high sell limits. How can we set our limits to get the price we want? Yes, that is an issue, because there are a couple of trading platforms that have no limits, and there are people that have set their limits at like $9,999,000 a share, and have just been sitting in there since like February and March of that price. What I have done is I've set up alerts so that when the price of GameStop gets to like $75,000, which I'm sure I'll be staring at it anyway if it gets to that, then I will set my limit orders for the first share I want to sell at 100K or whatever it is. And then once that goes, because in Fidelity, I think they upped it to 500%. You can set a limit order 500% higher, but the old system was 50%. So my plan was set each share at 50% higher than the next and work my way up that ladder until it would only take 7 trades to get to over $1 million a share at that point. So I'd trade 7 shares, and all of a sudden I'm trading shares in the millions. And that's what you have to do. You just have to be paying attention. And who knows? Maybe the price will skyrocket so high, but by the time I get my act together, I will be selling for way more than $100,000 a share for my first share. It all depends on if they shut off the circuit breakers or not, which I think it's very likely to do, because the DTCC is going to want to get this thing over and done with as fast as possible and not drag it out, because the longer it drags out, the more it hurts everybody in the process. Okay. Komodosh asks if you had to choose between Moderna and Pfizer. I got the Pfizer because that was what was available when I got vaccinated. My parents got Moderna, and the efficacy looks about the same for at least the alpha variant, and the data coming out about the efficacy with the other more recent variants is kind of mixed depending on where it's coming from. Like I said, Israel said the efficacy for Pfizer is really low with Delta or Super Delta, whatever they're calling the most recent thing now. For me, it was easier when they just called them names and numbers. I was like, okay, the B117. Okay, that's a name I can follow. That's the astronomer in me. Yeah, so I think either of the mRNAs. Pfizer came out with a thing saying if you got a third shot of the Pfizer vaccine, the efficacy was like almost 100%. So it might be one of those things that we just need boosters. I don't know. I know whenever I talk about COVID and vaccines and RNA viruses, my Twitter starts to blow up with a bunch of angry people that don't think that the virus exists and it's all some giant scheme. But people are dying, man. And our goal should be to try to save lives when we can, if we can. And if my getting flu-like symptoms for 10 hours after I get a shot can save lives, then I will do it. I don't care. I lost some friends to COVID in the last year, and I miss them terribly. And I want them back. And sorry, getting a little weepy. But if I could give up everything I own to see my friends back again, I would. And I think a lot of you feel the same way. So, sorry. Gets emotional for me with thinking about that. Okay. Moving on. Try to maybe change the subject a little bit. Pastor Blunt Around. He said that name will help me there. At AMC at $29. How much further could they possibly push this thing down? Couldn't they close their positions from 70, 60, 50, and 40s and make bank? How come they won't take the money they made? I think largely because the volume when they shorted at $5, at $2, at $1 is so huge that even with it being at $29, they still owe billions from when it was at $1.29. And I don't think they're taking the price drop to close positions. I think they're just shorting more. And they're just shorting, and they're not closing positions. And they're, because we saw them do that huge debt swap right when they got to close to the T+35 date on AMC last month. And they did those giant debt swaps, and they just reset all those FTDs all over again. So they're not closing positions. They're just getting more cash on hand and probably offshoring it, is my guess. And because that's what they do. I mean, we have $400 trillion of American wealth that's been offshored over the last 30 years, 40 years. And, they have no intention of repatriating any of that money inside the United States. They will keep it offshore for as long as possible to avoid taxes and avoid obligations. And that's where they go with that. Okay. Diana Brito. Hi, Houston. What is the process to raise the debt ceiling higher? Can the U.S. government do that indefinitely? That's kind of what they do. Essentially, they raise the debt ceiling, and they say they can raise it from this point to this point. And usually they do the math, and there's a date involved when they expect it to get to the next ceiling level. I don't think other countries do it this way. It's a really weird system. The other countries just go, hey, if we need bonds, we'll sell those bonds. But then again, the U.S., our bonds are kind of the foundation of the entire global economy. And in 2019, they suspended the debt ceiling for 2 years. They said, hey, July 31st is when we'll revisit this again. And when they do, they expected people to either vote to suspend it again and just let it do what the debt does, or raise it to a certain level once more. So there's that more wiggle room for them to issue bonds and pay for government services and pay off their interest on existing bonds. So the problem is that, and this is largely when a Republican president is in office, Republicans don't care about debt at all. They will spend, and they will raise debts and deficits like crazy. And when a Democrat comes in office, then Republicans all of a sudden like, we got to focus on this debt. We can't have this debt. This debt is really horrible. We can't have debt. No debt. No debt. And they talk a lot about how we can't have debt. And then we get close to that time we have to raise a debt ceiling again, and they scoff and they say, no, we're not going to raise that. Knowing full well that if they don't raise the debt ceiling, it can cause financial ruin for the entire global economy. And so they like to use this as a bargaining chip to get other things done while they are out of power. And so they use the debt ceiling as this bargaining chip in that case. It's purely political at this point. We need the debt ceiling to be raised whenever it comes around, because government has to run on debt. That's just the way our system works. And we have to use that debt as this investment tool across all sectors of the economy. Okay. Trevor Bates just wanted to say thanks for letting us poke your super brain. Great stuff. Keep it up. Thank you, Trevor. Man, all right. I think that's the end of those super chats there. Holy moly, I'm at almost the 2-hour point. I do have to make it to the post office before they close at some point to figure out what my post office box is going to be. Okay. All right. Okay, let's see what questions we got in the regular chat here. There's like millions I've missed. You guys have super chatted a lot today. Goodness. Okay. Stanley Blasky says AMC is going to hit the low 20s, possibly teens before we get a rip. Might be an awesome buying pressure if it goes that low again. I would, if I have the cash, I would definitely buy more if it gets down to the teens. Yeah. Okay. Frederick Miles, Fed needs more quantitative easing to suppress interest rates. Yeah. The problem we are at an issue right now where interest rates, after the collapse of the economy in 2008, one of the ways you fight an economic trouble like that is increased liquidity in the market is to lower interest rates a whole bunch. So it makes it easier for people to borrow money and buy things. So you get that velocity of money up. We have lowered the interest rates so far that when the economy started doing well, we didn't raise interest rates. And so we've almost lost that tool to combat when the economy just shits the bed. And it's nice to have some leeway in there to be like, okay, the economy's doing terrible. We can drop these interest rates a whole bunch, dump a bunch of reserve notes into banks, and then get that credit crunch going. Erase that credit crunch and get borrowing going again. There's issues that happen when you don't slowly raise interest rates along with the economy growing up. And the Keynesian model is you don't want an economy to grow really fast. You want it to grow slowly and steadily over time. So it's just year over year, you get a nice solid growth rate. And when that curve bends too fast and those interest rates don't grow with it to kind of tamper it a little bit, then you get this huge drop at the end and you don't have that wiggle room to do the quantitative easing needed. So we're kind of shot ourselves in the junk here by not raising interest rates when we had the chance. And now the economy is the economy is probably going to tank, and we will lose one of our important tools, which is lowering those interest rates. I kind of just said that like 5 times in a row. But I'm in repeat mode. Okay. All right. Mads Rasmussen, hey Houston, what's your streaming schedule? Big love from Denmark. So I'm trying right now, and it may change come fall when I get my new teaching schedule. But right now I try to do Mondays and Wednesdays at 12:30 p.m. Pacific. That's West Coast time in the United States. And then on Fridays I try to do a show. And it's like every other Friday I've got a weird schedule. So sometimes I can do it in the daytime. Sometimes it becomes an evening show out here after like 6 or 7 p.m. I'm located in Seattle, ex-infamous 01. So I try to do at least 3 days a week, do these live shows. And, you know, if I get enough subscribers at some point, I can probably do this more full time. But right now I still have to teach and work my other jobs. You know, if I would love to be able to do more shows in a week and be able to do more recorded shows on specific subjects if I can. So that's my schedule right now. And then you know, if I have time on the weekend, I might throw a show up there and just kind of, you know, talk about what's happening on everyone's weekend. This doing these shows is really fun for me. I love all the questions everyone has, and I love being able to like ping pong ball around and talk about science and finance and news and all this stuff. So I thank you so much. Oh, there's Jimmy D. Why so handsome? I blame my parents. Ex-infamous 01. Do you reside in Houston? No, I'm in Seattle. Eddie Q asks, where can we get your PO info later? I'll probably post it to Twitter, and the next video I'll make sure I put it in the description of the video along with the Patreon info and all that stuff. So the PO box will be in there, or you can just direct message me. And when I finally remember to go to the post office today, I can get that for you. And you can send me shirts. I love my shirts. Chris Taylor, no question, great show. Thanks so much. I'm out to get a bike ride in before it gets too late. Night, everyone. Enjoy your bike ride. We here in Seattle got great bike riding weather. It's 74 degrees and sunny, and not too smoky yet from the fires. The smoke came in on Sunday and really just, but it blew away again. So I'm not looking forward. We get a weather change at the end of August where a lot of air blows from the continent out, and I'm not looking forward to the smoke. The fires in Eastern Washington are brutal right now. I'm supposed to take a group of UW geology people out to look for sapphires in the Okanagan, which is northeastern Washington, in 2 weeks. And the air quality is like 900 parts right now. It's absolutely horrible. So I don't know if we're going to get the opportunity. And there's nowhere we can camp because all the campgrounds are shut down because of the fire danger. Man, just get some rain. Visceral Records Live. Looking forward to your stream with Gherkin, a.k.a. Pickle Financial. That's thinking Pickle Financial. Again, I need the names like 5 times. So we're doing that tomorrow. I can't remember, on maybe 2 p.m. Pacific is when I'll be doing, be for about an hour with the Gherkin. And we're just going to chit-chat and see what's on his mind and go from there. All right. Let's see here. Is Eddie Q? I want to see a Pi-Fi stream collab too. I don't know Pi-Fi. I love meeting all these folks that also have streams like this. Every time I've done an interview with one of them, it's been so much fun. So anyone you want, suggest I will do an interview with anybody. I just am not competent enough to host, so I have to go on their shows. Because you know me and my technological abilities, I'll accidentally like delete somebody from the internet forever. I don't know. Jason Boucher, if you're interested in one of the Citadel on Fire shirts, he has them on Etsy. So search for Wilder LAQ. So sorry, I forgot to plug that. I'm so sorry, Jason. Yes, go to Etsy. He's selling those Citadel on Fire shirts, and they are fantastic. So go to his Etsy page and Wilder LAQ for those Citadel shirts. They're awesome. So thank you, Jason. I will plug that all day long for you. It's a great shirt, and I don't know, maybe I'll wear it tonight if I can fiddle around with the theme that Enraged Goose made for me. So look for me in like 10 hours possibly messing around on the internet trying to get that to work. All right. Money making Houston, will you move after the MOASS? I mean, it depends on how much money I have, right? I love where I live. I love the Northwest and the Seattle area. But one thing I don't love is tree pollen. And I, if I could afford to never spend a March and April in the Pacific Northwest ever again, I will gladly go somewhere else in the world where I don't have to breathe in cedar pollen. Those 2 months are so miserable for me, even with like filling myself up with Claritin or Zyrtec. I will gladly find some other location on Earth to spend those 2 months every year. Yeah, so that's... I'll have a second home somewhere that is not just jizzing tree pollen all over my face. All right. I'll do a couple more questions here, and then I'm gonna head out. I gotta do the post office thing for the day, and then go for a long walk with a neighbor who's back from Spain for a while. And I did a 20-mile walk with Monkey, so I don't know how much more I can do with my feet yesterday. But she still deserves a walk. She's a very, very athletic creature and very bored and laying on the floor right now. Okay. Mass, do I think AMC can reach 100K? Yeah, I mean, I think its peak will be pretty high. But again, that peak isn't for everybody. Not everyone sells in that little window that is the peak. Everyone else is in the bell curve on either side. So, you know, if you're lucky enough to be that person selling the peak, more power to you. Yeah. Oh, Pi Phi's Pickle Financial. Sorry. Okay. I don't know the lingo. Thank you, Jason. Pi Phi's Pickle Financial. That's Gherkin. Got it. Do you know about Cosmic Lightning Warrior? You should interview with him. I don't know Cosmic Lightning Warrior. I would love to do an interview with them, though. I will do it with anybody. Who has most of your cash, GME or AMC? I'm more heavily invested in GME. That's where I took what cash I had on hand. I threw it at that. I YOLO'd at that in February, and I picked up other positions and other things since then. Sheepducking Cow U. I'm flying to San Diego and driving up to San Francisco in September. Place to stop, advise along the way. Oh, man. Okay. Definitely stop in Big Sur. Big Sur is awesome. If you have the opportunity, pay the money and go check out Hearst Castle. It is one of the coolest buildings I've ever seen in my life. And I think I promised the internet the next time I go, I'd pay whatever fines it was and just do a cannonball into the pool. But next chance I have to go, because it's just the coolest. It is such a cool building. It's definitely worth it. Definitely worth the $40 or whatever the entrance fee is. Was it the Weird Spot in Santa Cruz? It's one of those buildings that have like weird perspective things happen, and you feel like you're walking upside down and stuff. That's a cool place to go. Carmel and the drive through there to Monterey is just gorgeous. Carmel is expensive as can be. It's where like the richest people in the world live. When Clint Eastwood's your mayor, you know that you're fancy. Those are great spots. I like Half Moon Bay. If it's the wintertime, I'd suggest stopping off at Mavericks and watching the waves come in. But this time of year, the waves aren't gigantic. But it's a great drive all the way up. When you get up Pacific Coast, it's a very slow drive. It's very slow, very foggy. So don't fall off anything. But yeah, it's gorgeous. So here, San Diego. I lived in San Diego briefly. That's where I originally went to school. I was supposed to go to school, but hit by a car. I had a great time in Mission Beach, just spending my days on the beach. And then I've got family in San Clemente and family in LA, so I go to those places a lot. Things to do in LA. La Brea Tar Pits are awesome if you've never been. Last time I went to La Brea Tar Pits, there was a creationist that was giving a tour to the people there. And I totally ruined that guy's tour by actuallying him 1,000 times. Well, actually, you can actually go through time and discover that the earliest creatures that fell in these pits are 400,000 years old. And the guy's like, there's only 5,000 years old. So you can have fun like that. The Peterson Automobile Museum is rad if you're in LA. I do like, even if you're not a car person, the Peterson Museum is pretty cool. I recommend that. And yeah, there's a good road trip for you. That's the way to spend a couple of days on that drive. All right. Okay, so yeah. All right. I think that might be it for the day, folks. I want to thank you so much for jumping in and spend the day with me. Sorry, I got a little weepy there. I don't normally try to avoid that, but you know, emotions are emotions, man. Can't deny them. And thanks again. I'll probably be popping on late tonight to fool around with the formatting, because as you can see, this formatting isn't the prettiest thing in the world at the moment. And so I'm gonna work on that and try to get it working right. And then expect a show on Friday, probably Friday day this week, probably around 12:30 again, Pacific time, and then I'll be on with Pickle Financial tomorrow. I think 2:00ish. I'll have to double check that, but I'll tweet that out when I get a link. So look for me doing that. All right, everybody. See you later. Catch you on the flip side, and I'll be wearing a new shirt.